just before we begin, a couple of little pieces around what is humanism. Humanism is a simple philosophy. It is an ethical life stance which focuses on human values and being good without God. It is about taking responsibility and treating others with respect while living our one life. And if you'd like to know more about humanism and the fundamental principles, otherwise known as the Amsterdam Declaration, these are all available online, and you may also go to our website, www.humanism.ie. Now, to our wonderful speaker. Martin Fazeli is and has been an A-list film director for many years across the globe. He has been producing, directing, and writing fiction and television film for more than 2 decades, and his extensive international experience, having worked on location in a dozen different countries, one of which he's in today, which he'll tell us all about. And his films have been broadcast around the world, winning over 37 international awards in the process. He has been phenomenal in looking at collaborations with associations close to our own hearts here in Humanism Ireland, UNDP, the European Commission for Nonviolence International, on a wide range of film and television projects, including national and regional campaigns, exploring issues around human rights, women's rights, and minority rights. His 2007 production, The Tale of Two Nazanin's, about a teenage girl imprisoned on death row in Iran, was broadcast in major international networks like BBC and CNN, and that was integral to looking at the campaign to save the life of a wonderful girl in Iran. In 2008, Martin was chosen with the Sundance International Award Group to look at International Filmmaker Awards, and he has lectured around the world in SFU and SOAS and Aarhus in Denmark. Martin, we are delighted to say hello, and how are you and where are you precisely?
Thank you, Michael, for that kind introduction. I'm actually in Mexico doing the film, doing research for a film about shamanism in Mexico and all these different healing methods, not only in a body-related context, but social context. So yeah, and this painting behind me probably tells you where I am. It's a nice painting of people dancing, being happy, drinking in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So thank you for that kind introduction. By the way, thank you, Erin, and thank you, Sylvia, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you spending some of your Wednesday evening with me. I also want to thank HAI for organizing this and for inviting me.
Fantastic. So, as we spoke recently, and what I loved about what you do, and one sort of phrase really kind of caught my eye, has been storytelling, right? And you talked about that a lot, and it seems to be clearly a running theme, and we'll go into some of the words around storytelling. But if you could just give us a little sense of why storytelling is such a big part of who you are.
I think the storytelling is a big part of human history. We live in stories. I mean, we basically live by narratives we build, and a narrative is basically a story. We've been telling each other stories for the past 10,000 years, and so I'm not really of the opinion that a story is a powerful tool of impacting people. I really take one step further. We live in the frameworks of stories we tell each other, and we tell ourselves, most importantly. So in that sense, it's probably one of the most important features of living on Earth. And we tell the stories in different ways. Like, film is just one way of one medium to embody a story. We tell stories through poetry, we tell stories through, even when, all the art forms, and of course we tell a story when we write a beautiful journalistic piece, we tell a story when we write an intellectual book, we tell a story when we come up with a new technological invention. We're changing the narrative. So it's all stories, it's all narratives. And the question is, which narrative is the dominant one? And so that dominant narrative basically informs our actions and our beliefs first, and then because our beliefs inform our actions, our worldviews. So I think we're living in the bubble of stories, whether we like it or not. This is, human fate. It's good.
Where did you get that passion for it? Because, like when we spoke before, and you talked about sometimes it can be learned or it can be innate, and some cultures, some people, and we said, particularly Irish people, and we're renowned for telling stories or hearing stories, whether they're fictional or not, or a mixture of the both. So where did your sense of your ability to tell stories, emanate from?
For first off, talking about Ireland, of course, Joyce and Beckett, and I think Lewis MacNeice is also Irish, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. He's a poet. He was one of my favorite poets when I was growing up. Yes, okay, good. A thumb up. Great storytellers, of course. I think everybody has a story to tell. I think we all, as I said, we live with stories, and we breathe stories. But the question is, there is a difference between having a story and being able to tell a story, or being able to tell a good story. It's not so much, the what of the thing, but the how of the thing. Okay, how do you construct a story? How do you put it forward? How do you shape it? That's where the impact is. The most profound and beautiful stories can be banalized by bad telling, by bad storytelling, and vice versa. I was in Berlin a few years ago, and I was on the street, and a couple of street musicians were singing this song, which is rather a silly song. Don't worry, be happy. You remember that song from the 80s? Mm-hmm. Don't worry. But they were singing it with such passion that, people were actually impacted. They were just, gathering, and there was a large crowd of people, and then they were giving those musicians money and stuff like that. It's really the way you tell a story, and it's in the way you communicate your story. That's where, the impact resides. But everybody has a story, and, of course, it brings me back to my view, and this is not a common view among us about filmmakers. When it comes to documentary filmmaking, and when it comes to social justice documentary filmmaking, I don't really see it as an elite art form. I think anybody with a story, and everybody has a story, has a great story, should be able to make an impactful documentary film. The main two questions are, in my opinion, passion and commitment. The rest of it is not that difficult. We have to, I've been doing this for 22 years. If somebody comes to me, let's say a film school graduate, and says, look, I have this story and I want to put it in a film, I can help her or him in many different ways. The most important thing is to avoid the pitfalls, where not to go, as opposed to where to go. But constructing a story and, telling it authentically and dramatically is not a difficult thing. It's not a difficult task. Takes experience, some expertise, but with that guidance, a lot of people with great stories and with a commitment to that story, with a passion for that story, can make their impactful documentaries. This is what I believe. And this is not something that film schools tell you, because they're making money off you. And I went to 2 film schools myself. I have nothing against film schools, but it's a failed business model, in my opinion. something, for a later discussion. Anyway, I think everybody has a story. The question is whether we can tell a story in a dramatic, impactful way or not.
I mean, I think, along that train of thought, when you say storytelling and then documentary filmmaking as opposed to filmmaking, and, I guess for a lot of people, being brave enough to tell a story, I mean, I found, we talked about bravery, because it takes guts, it takes, a lot to say, I'm going to tell this particular story when it may go against the grain, and it may not be what some may see as politically correct to project to others, because some people may not want to hear that type of story. So I guess, when you looked at the tale of the two Nazarenes in 2007, I mean, there is something that, struck a chord, clearly yourself, but when you were looking at that and wondering about it and pondering, how can I tell that story that is going to resonate and that is going to be talked about, accepted in a positive way, because you were going to go against a juggernaut in terms of blocking and not wanting that to be told. What was that like for you to say, hey, this is a story and I'm going to tell it? And how did you have the bravery again to go for that?
In terms of bravery, filmmakers have a bit of madness in them. So we're all are a bit crazy. Okay, let me put it this way. Like you got to be a little crazy off, not to have, money to pay for your dinner and then talk about this multi-million-dollar project you're going to realize next year. There's a bit of madness involved in the whole enterprise. But my opinion is, if you really love to make a film, if you really love it, if you really love the story, there is no way you're going to make a bad film. Here, it's all here. If you truly love it, if you truly love the subject matter, you're not going to fail. All right. Now, in regard to the Tale of Two Nazarenes, of course, I mean, I was born in Iran, and of course, I'm a survivor of the Iranian Revolution of 1979. So I became a socio-political animal very early in my life, because I lost members of my family to fire squads for crimes as petty as distributing banned opposition papers. So there was a connection between me and this story when it happened. And then I was in touch with this. Okay, to tell you what the story is, people who don't know, in 2007, a girl of 17 years of age is walking with her niece in a park in Tehran, Iran, and they're attacked by three men who want to rape them. This girl has a knife with her, so she basically kills one of the attackers, injures another, and then they run away. She goes to a police station. She tells them what happened. They put her in jail, and 3 months later, they sentenced her to death on murder charges. That was the story. And so her name was Nazanin. Now, she has a namesake in Canada who is of Iranian origin, but she is a supermodel, she is a beauty queen, and she's a human rights activist. And so I knew Nazanin, the Canadian Nazanin, and she contacted me and she said, I'm going to do a campaign to save her life. What can we do together? And we decided to do a documentary film. So basically, I made that documentary film in a matter of 3 months, because we only had 3 months. There was a retrial, okay, that was going to happen 3 months from the time that we started the film, that started making the film. And if the retrial kind of confirmed the verdict of the first trial, she would be hanged in 5 days. That was the situation. We only had 3 months. I was sleeping in my editing room. Now, people who don't know how to, you make a documentary film, basically a documentary film takes somewhere between 16 to 24 months if you're lucky. Sometimes it takes
Wow.
more. So we had to really do tremendous amount of work, and I worked with fantastic colleagues. We had 4 teams, sent one to Iran, sent one to Germany to talk to Amnesty International, sent one to Ottawa to talk to politicians and human rights activists, and I was in Vancouver filming the rest of the stuff, and of course supervising the whole operation. So we put the film together, and then the film was partially or in full broadcast on all these different networks, right wing, left wing, no wing. And so there was this, the public opinion was galvanized. And as a result, we could put together a petition. And I think in 48 hours, the petition attracted 500,000 signatures to it, which we later submitted to the UN. So there was an international outcry against the case. And for the Iranian authorities, she was little fish. She was not a big fish. She was not a dissident. She was not a political activist. So when that outcry happened, the retrial acquitted her. Okay, they decided to let her go because she was becoming too expensive, and so she was saved to some degree as a result.
In terms of censorship and dealing with Iran and that regime, how, like, I'm fascinated, how did you manage, because we hear a lot about how difficult it is for people to speak up, and how did you manage to bypass that? Because that must have been to get that traction when these types of incidents occur and other people have not been as fortunate. And what was it about your story that made them go?
In one word, spy games. I mean, that's why I find documentary filmmaking exciting, because it gives you this opportunity to actually live sometimes like a James Bond. But yeah, you have to stay under the radar. You have to use all sorts of tricks to deceive authorities, to bypass laws. All of that. It's just part of the game, particularly when you're making a political film. You've got to be resourceful, and you've got to have a good support system. So
did the movie then in its entirety get shown in Iran?
No. It's only, I'm banned in Iran. Like if I go back, they will probably, I'm on the blacklist of the government. I can go back to Iran. I'm not sure if I can return. No, I don't know. No, it's the censorship is very strong. But then again, I mean, the point was to galvanize public opinion internationally. It was not really to change the mind of the executioners in Iran. And those guys pay attention to international pressure. You see, a friend of mine told me the other day, she said, never underestimate the desire of dictators to be loved.
True.
And so it's you work with that psychology at the same time. And so we worked it, and in that context, we're all human beings, good or bad. We all are human beings, and we follow the same probably patterns of behavior to some degree. It worked out, we put the pressure on Iranian judiciary to do something, or not to do it. In this case, executing this minor. And it happens all over the world, right? I mean, that was, of course, there are not many documentaries made on cases like that. There are not many documentaries that end up saving lives, but it's not because documentaries cannot do that. It's because a lot of people, a lot of documentarians do not, take that extra step. They don't go to that corner, that dark corner, and they can, without much risk to themselves, particularly if they live in this part of the world. It's just that, they do not really believe in what they can do, which brings me to the next point I wanted to make, and that is that, as filmmakers, as documentary filmmakers, we're in the business of changing the world. and let me tell you first off that, when we talk about social issue cinema or social justice cinema, it's not limited to documentary genre. Fictional films can also talk, and indeed do talk, about social justice. There are many powerful examples, from Guess Who's Coming for Dinner to Defiant One to Metropolis to Mississippi Burning, Before the Rain. There are many good examples, but no art form can come close to documentary in terms of the impact it can have on the reality on the ground. None of the art forms, theater, novel, dance, painting, poetry, etc. And none of them has the possibility, let me put it this way, the possibility to bring about change the way documentary cinema does. And so
if I may just interject, with the Tale of Two Naznans, what was the after effect in terms of Nazanin herself in Iran, and was there any other positive outcomes from not just her case, but did you shine a light? Was that a focus to not just highlight Nazanin's case, but were you able to reach out to others along similar lines?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think she's a medical doctor somewhere in Iran now. I don't know if she has a family, but that was my information. She was studying medicine. We're not in touch anymore.
Okay.
And because it's dangerous for her. Okay, she should not be in touch with somebody like me when she's living in Iran. But I think she's a medical doctor now, and she's living a life, and probably she's more socially conscious than she was before, this happened to her. But yeah, I mean, I have received many emails from people, particularly aspiring filmmakers, who have been inspired by that.
And are there any other themes with Iran today that if you sit down and go, there's a project I'd like to look at? Are there parts of the Iran today that put some fire in your belly to go back as a topic, as a theme?
Are you talking about Iran specifically? Yeah, I mean, there are at least something like 25 people on death row, innocent people on death row as we speak. So, and each one of them is a case. But then the question is really whether, I mean, there are not enough hours in a day for me. Okay, so 24 hours are not enough. Right now, I have 3 projects, and when you give your word, you keep it. I have given my word to people in regard to these projects, and so I'm very busy right now. But I'll take on. I mean, like if there is an emergency, if I can really help save a life, I would put all these projects on hold, and start working on the new project to save a life. Nothing has been brought to me, and I do not know of any case where I can be helpful, among all these people who are on death row in Iran, because I'm limited. And let's not forget, I mean, the case of Nazanin Fazeli happened because I had a lot of support. I had the support of Nazanin Afshinjam here. Nazanin had the support of some really powerful people. We had the support of Amnesty International. But with a lot of these guys, it's not easy. And that's one of the reasons why I really think that, I think social justice filmmakers are like, isolated islands in this ocean of humanity, and we should come together.
And when you're talking to students, whether they're, in the States or here in Europe, I know when we spoke before, you said, the tools needed to make a documentary, and to be brave enough to try to script and have your story, it can be done quite easily. And like, do you firmly believe in that? I mean, obviously you bring a depth of knowledge and experience, and you can bring resources to creating a team, right? So in terms of production
Right.
editing and the types of camera photography work you may need. But if somebody has a topic, has an agenda, do you feel that people are able to tell those stories with their, like you simply said, an iPhone, and in a way that you can edit? But is there a sense too, though, that we're diluting the quality of those stories because things have become so accessible, and so maybe the quality of the story is and it's standing out, and may become more difficult? What's your take on that in terms of being able to tell a quality story?
Right. Okay. First off, people go to see movies because they want to follow a story. They want to know what happens next in this particular context, in that particular traumatic context. People don't go to see movies because they want to see the camera work and how beautiful the music is and how good the sound work is. Now, in terms of the story, yes, if I'm making a film about, for example, you, Michael, and you're in Dublin, and you're living, it's a controlled environment, I'd better bring good cameras and good lighting and good sound gear. But if I'm making a film about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, okay, and I am in Bakhmut, okay, where the fighting is happening right now, nobody's expecting me to do that. So a cell phone can actually work. It's all about context. And there are films like that. For example, if you think about a film, and I really highly recommend that film, No Fire Zone. It's a British film, by the way, but it's about the killing fields of Sri Lanka in 2009. No Fire Zone. No Fire Zone. Okay, what happened was that, we had the Tamil Tigers fighting for independence in Indonesia, in Sri Lanka for years and years, and they were given self-governance for some time. The UN was monitoring the process, and at some point, the Sri Lankan government decides to kick UN out and get rid of these Tamil Tigers, get rid of this independence, movement. And so nobody's witnessing. The UN is gone, and journalists are not allowed, to cover this. And so what they do, they start an assault, a full-scale assault from the air, the sea, and the land on the Tamil Tigers. Now, a lot of Tamil population, they have nothing to do with the Tigers. I mean, it's a guerrilla organization, it's a partisan organization. So what they do at the Sri Lankan government, they create a zone, 40 miles by 40 miles, and they ask the ordinary Tamils to go to this zone so they would be safe. This really happened. When hundreds of thousands of Tamil civilians go to that particular zone and they settle down, the Sri Lankan government starts to bomb the zone, killing thousands.
Wow.
Now, that atrocity is not filmed by international journalists. It's not filmed by CNN or BBC. It's filmed by ordinary Tamil citizens in that zone, and they film it not on their cell phones, smartphones. They film that on their manual phones, phones that were, built in 2001 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, my phone is kind of
That's good. I should actually.
It's dinosaur, and it's like so
they're hard to detect. Talking about spy work, that's actually something that every documentary and every filmmaker should have. And so, years later, 2-3 years later, this British documentarian, humanist, by the way, decides to make a film about that event. And so what he does, he goes and finds the footage of these cell phones.
Okay.
So literally 80% of the film, 75% of the film is made up of terrible footage. And that is one of the most powerful, impactful documentaries in the history of cinema. That documentary almost brought the government of Sri Lanka down.
Wow. It
brought the government down. The defense minister of Sri Lanka had to resign as a result of that film. The prime minister fell right? The government of the prime minister fell within 2 years after the release of that film. It won so many awards. Obama talked about it. David Cameron talked about it. Le Monde talked about it. Guardian talked about it. New York Times talked about it. And 80% of the footage is terrible.
Yeah.
There's non-professionals filming on non-professional equipment.
It was the message.
That's it. The message. So no, we have examples of, it's all about the story, because people understand, what film or what, camera person would actually go and put himself or herself in the middle of a war zone like that. I mean, when you see that footage, you see actually bombs falling, 5-6 meters away. Okay, you have to be there, not by choice, but by necessity to film it. Okay, and so there are very few cameramen I know or camera women I know who would actually put themselves in that situation. People get that when they watch them. So yeah, it's all about, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, no, please finish.
Yeah. So it's all about the story, but then again, it all depends on the context, because a film like The No Fire Zone is one type of storytelling, and a film like Blackfish, which I would like to show you. I would like to show you the trailer of the film, is another type, and is done very well in terms of cinematography, in terms of technicality. Or the film I'm making, for example, on India, Pulan, we're using high-end gear. But it really depends on the context. But in general, my point is this: if the feelings and the emotions that are communicated are authentic and strong, nobody cares.
Because I think,
Yeah.
again, a theme, then with a few questions have come in, I'm going to come to them very quickly, but that sense of people, right? So Sri Lanka, and the ladies linked to Nazanin, and then the humanity around that.
Yeah.
And a cause, and then outcomes. And these were words that came to sprung to mind when we spoke. Narratives, humanism, fear, and causes and outcomes. So, like, before I get to the questions, I suppose final question from my side is: have people become almost desensitized to seeing a message because of the bombardment of social media platforms? So, in this day and age, how do you feel getting the message across? Is it more difficult because of the desensitization, or people are more immune to viewing and fast television and media channels or documentaries? How do you get that message across in the craziness of what we see?
I think most pressing challenge for me is short attention span. It's not so much the saturation of the so-called market, because if you really look at it, for example, think about great films made in the 60s. And if you wanted to make a film in the 60s, you had to have connections. You had to have very expensive gear, know a lot of people, all of that. It was not easy for a layman to just make a film right in the 60s. Okay, today you can make a film on your cell phone. The camera on this cell phone is better than my 2000 camera, which I bought in New York for $5,000, and I made a film on that, and it went to a lot of different festivals. Okay, so all right, so today anybody can make a film, but the ratio of good films to the films produced in 1964 is no different than that ratio in 2023. It's the same ratio. So in 1964, let's say only 2.5% of all the films, all the mainstream films produced, were great. Today, that's the same ratio, 2.5%.
Okay, look, I'm going to go to some of the questions that have come in to me.
Sure.
I'm going to begin with Joe Armstrong. Joe, I'll read out your question, and if you want to engage afterwards, please do. But basically, hi, Hossein, I'm not familiar with your work, but I will look forward to checking it out.
Thank you.
Fair dues to you, very Irish terminology there, but hopefully you got that. In terms of to get a film out in 3 months, and I myself made a radio documentary. It took me longer than that. Joe's kindly shared the link, and we'll forward that on to you.
I would love to.
He found making it cathartic about my experience changing my narrative from believer to unbeliever. I agree with you that documentaries can bring about change, not least because fact is stranger and more powerful than fiction. And then, so that's one. Anything to comment on that?
Yes, a couple of things. First off, I mean, how much time do I have?
Oh, we have 20 minutes, but don't worry, if we go beyond and you're still enjoying our company, we can go as long as you're comfortable. But we've got roughly 20, but we're happy to listen to you and engage here. So
sure, thank you. So let me talk for about 7.5 minutes. I mean, just to make this also more exciting, show you a couple of different trailers. I think that would be nice. Also, one of the things, one of the films that I am making. Talking about just briefly, okay. As I said, as documentarians, we're in the business of changing the world, wanting to change the world. We're not happy with the status quo. And a lot of my colleagues do not, are shy about saying that, expressing that, but I'm not. So we're in the business of changing the world, and that's why we're primarily concerned with the why of things, not the how of things or the what of things, but the why of things. Yeah. Why is there, for example, such widespread poverty all around the world? Or why is sexual violence a monstrous, just common feature of living on Earth so prevalent? Why most, don't think about big issues necessarily. Why most marriages, at least in this part of the world, fail or fall apart, okay? Why politics, for the most part, is a third-degree theatrics of indifferent bureaucrats. So all of those, whys, and the reason why we talk about the why of things is because we want to inspire others. Because basically, by addressing the why of things, our aim is to inspire people to act, because that's when things change. We want to inspire action. And in that context, I think our biggest, enemy is apathy and powerlessness, which are directly linked. To an ordinary person, global problems seem overwhelming, and they are overwhelming. So most of us feel small and consequential when we think about the most pressing issues of the day, from sexual violence to extreme poverty to, war to global warming. And a main reason for that is cable television. 90% of TV news is bad news, and you're bombarded with that 24/7. So at some point you give up. The problems are tremendous. What can I do about them? Our job is to basically create that feeling of agency, okay? And I don't see a lot of documentaries do that, but documentary genre has the possibility to do that. It is designed to evoke and provoke agency in the viewer if you do it right. So broadly speaking, we have two types of inspiring films that would instigate or bring about change, or films about people who instigate or bring about change. In the first category, we have films like Blackfish, and I want to show the trailer of the film right now. It's a film about
before you jump into it, I do have a raised hand, and sure. I'm going to just so this may add it into our. Sure. 1 second. So from Muriel, if you're there, bear with me.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Good,
Both of
good.
you? Yeah. Yeah, there you are. I can't believe you're Iranian. The best people on the planet, Persian.
Hey.
Yeah, yo. My GP is Persian, and he came over to Ireland when he was, I think he was 15.
Yeah.
He was a young chap, and he was a doty darling. And he was living here since, I think forever, but he's the most marvelous GP I've ever met.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you something totally off script. I was
Yeah.
in London this weekend,
Mm.
and I went to a place called Stanford Hill.
Mm.
Are you familiar with that place?
No.
Yeah, it is the biggest community of Hasidic Jews
Mm.
in Europe.
Yeah.
And have you ever thought of doing a documentary about them?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, again, for me, it's really not the community, but the story. So
Exactly.
as long as there is a story within the community, I'll go for it. But then you can find a story if you enter the community and do your research. As I said, everybody has a story. So the question for us as documentarians is access. How can I access this person and establish a relationship with her so that she can be authentic with me and tell me about, you know, her innermost feelings or her stories. So once that is established, then yeah, why not?
Yeah, it'll never be her, it'll be a him with them, but you will absolutely get it. Of course, we did it this weekend, and they're extremely affable and very insular, but very, very fascinating.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
those communities are, and then if you really look at them, because I mean, they come from, we're talking about thousands of years of history behind them.
Correct. They're
And
the
so
most oldest. Yeah.
there's a lot of history, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of trauma, and there are a lot of stories.
Absolutely.
So these
Yeah.
communities, generally speaking, in my experience, they have great stories to tell. So yeah, I'll be definitely interested next
Oh,
time
go for that. And I was just watching it.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for.
Are you
thanks
interested in
for suggesting.
Chaz? Yeah, go for it.
Thank you,
Chaz,
Muriel. Thank you,
English.
Million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
sure. So going back to the issue of Blackfish, this is a film that is about orcas, and it was just to give you a kind of brief understanding of what the situation is. A lot of aquariums and water shows get these orcas, killer whales, and put them in a bathtub, basically. All right, for years and years. I mean, when these creatures are in the wild, they travel about 30 miles a day, and then you put them in a bathtub, 50 meters long, 20 meters wide for 25 years. And so these poor creatures, if they don't die, they become psychotic. You put anybody in a bathtub for 25 years and it becomes psychotic. And so there have been many instances of these orcas hurting or killing their trainers. And this is something that happened also in Orlando, USA in 2013. And some filmmakers decided to make a film on that. Now, the corporation that ran this aquarium called SeaWorld in Orlando blamed trainer error for the incident, but nothing could be further from the truth. Now, can we watch the trailer so we can just
Please do. Yeah, yeah.
Sure. So let's. Okay, I am disabled. Could you, enable my share screen?
So. Here. You should, as co-host, you should be able to go to the bottom of your screen, hover over. You should.
Yeah, I do that. It says host disabled participant screen share.
Bear with me.
Sure. While Michael is working on it, what happened as a result of this film?
Sorry. Is it just because you've dialed in and dialed out? I'm remaking you co-host. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, very good. Yes, thank you. This is everybody can see this. Okay, I hope it works well. Let's go for it.
When you look into their eyes, you know somebody is home.
They're an animal that possesses great spiritual power, not to be meddled with.
We need SO to respond for a dead person at SeaWorld. A whale has eaten one of the trainers.
Silicon, though, is the one that went after her. Dawn is the senior trainer here at Shamu Stadium.
She captured what it means to be a SeaWorld trainer, that it made me realize what happened to her really could have happened to anyone.
I've been expecting somebody to be killed by a telecom.
We weren't told much about it, other than it was trainer error.
It didn't just happen. It's not a singular event. You have to go back to understand this.
The speedboat herded them in, and they could just pick out the young ones.
This is the worst thing that I've ever done.
When Telecom arrived at SeaWorld, he was twice as large as the next animal.
We store these whales in what we call a module, which was 20 feet across and 30 feet deep, and the lights were all turned out.
Probably led to what I think is a psychosis.
All whales in captivity are all psychologically traumatized. It's not just Telecom.
If you were in a bathtub for 25 years, don't you think you'd get a little psychotic?
Dawn would tell you that it was her mistake.
They blamed her.
It's just a bold-faced lie.
I was just instructed to get rid of the tape. The industry has a vested interest in spinning these. It sells a lot of Shamu dolls. It sells a lot of tickets at the gate.
There's no record of an orca doing any harm in the wild.
So when this film came, it's just talking about the impact of documentary cinema. Yes, it's a great film, actually. You know, they're talking about orcas. Orca is emotionally more complex than human beings. Think about it. And they torture these beings. They torture these animals. I've seen that firsthand. Anyway, what happened was a SeaWorld that basically had these orcas as part of its shows is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And when the film came out, within the first 7 months, they lost 35% of their revenues. What else could do this? You tell me. You're a $4 billion corporation, you lose $1 billion in 6 months.
Yeah.
Because of a film. They stopped their orca shows, okay, after 9 months. And a year later, they sold all their orcas, or they released them back into the wild. There are no orca shows today at SeaWorld, which is the largest aquarium in the world. So the impact of talking about the impact of documentary cinema. Now, how much more time do I have, Michael? Again, one more time.
We're good. We're good. As long as you're comfortable, we're great.
Oh, fantastic. So another thing is, and then, so this is a film that can instigate change, okay, bring about change. And this is one example of it, aside from the other film that I mentioned, No Fire Zone. And there are many instances. These are kind of notable examples. Another type of film is when you make a film about people who instigate change or bring about change. And you know, one of the comments from Patrick here is, he's asking if I could talk about Pulan. I'm making one such film about this Indian woman, this amazing character. And so this is a film about this Indian girl, low caste village girl with a great sense of justice, who was subjected to unspeakable abuses, but she fought against them and she triumphed. Now, I want to show that mid-production trailer of this film. We're in post-production with that film. We're 75% done, and hopefully the film will be finished this year or, you know, the beginning of next year. Now, let me show this film to you. Okay, where do I have it? All right.
पूरन देवी नाम धर दो। फूलन जो वो देवता था। चरित्रहीन थी, हत्यारी थी। बंदूक गन रख दी assistant.
Now with a rifle, she had power over others for the first time.
There was also that Robin Hood type of image about her.
She wanted to regain her self-respect, which had been destroyed to smithereens.
For about 3 weeks, she was raped by the upper caste men in that village.
किसी ने नहीं सोचा कि लड़की है या औरत है, इसको छोड़ देना चाहिए, या तो वो लोग हमको मार देते, जिंदा नहीं छोड़ते। हमने कहा था उन लोगों से कि हमको मार दो।
तो सब ढेर मर चुके collusion.
What she did to those Thakurs and Memai, I totally endorse it. I would do the same.
The hunt for Pula Devi, I mean, it's the biggest hunt ever.
She came up to the stage and laid her weapon at his feet.
Pula Devi had become larger than life. She won that election, bang, is in parliament. I mean, what a rise.
She defied everything. She defied her past. She defied her culture. She defied the caste. She defied the police.
She will continue to inspire the poor caste to now really have a hero. She is Pula Devi.
So this is a film about an inspiring character, and just to kind of explain who she was, because I mean, of course, you just saw a trailer. She has a great sense of justice, and so and she's born in a village that doesn't appear on any map even today, and she pays for having a big mouth, so to speak. In such a horrifying way, by being gang raped for 10 days by 27 men. She runs away, she starts her own gang, she becomes a Robin Hood, a real one, in the area, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, and dispensing rough justice on men who abuse young girls and women. She becomes the subject of the largest manhunt in modern Indian history. Surrenders on her own terms, goes to jail. In jail, she becomes a Buddhist. She renounces violence. She comes out, runs for national parliament as a low caste woman, and she gets elected twice. So I'm not religious, I'm just a spiritual, but the challenges and the transformations in this story are almost biblical. They're tremendous. So this is a very inspiring story. Okay, we're 70% done. We're in post-production. We need a bit of support to get to the finish line, but we will. So the film is about women's rights, and it's about human rights, because I mean, women's rights are human rights, but it's more than that to me personally. That's the reason why I'm making it. To me, this is a film about the importance and the possibility of rising above one's circumstances.
Amazing.
I want people to watch this film and say to themselves that if Pula Devi could do that under her horrendous circumstances, I can do it under mine.
Amazing.
So whatever my
Martin,
circumstances
we
may be.
have a hand up from Maggie Kilcoyne. I'm just going to, Maggie, if you'd like to unmute yourself. Hi. Say hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is inspiring.
Maggie,
I have a hard time hearing.
Well, can you look at your audio? It's still a bit faint.
I do apologize. The best I can do, maybe for Ireland, so I do apologize.
If you want to type in your message on our chat, I might be able to get it. We just can't hear you very well, unfortunately.
No problem. Yeah.
Thanks. If you want to type in a question, I'll get it to hey, thanks. So Martin, you were saying
So yeah, I mean, for me, it's really the personal, because at the end, as I said, there is nothing worse than the power, the feeling of powerlessness. And if you really think about it, the powers to be want us to feel that. And that's the function of the narrative they built. Okay, that you're just a small fish. You cannot do anything. You're capable, right? You're inconsequential. To disturb that narrative, okay, is the beginning of the journey to change reality. The moment people feel empowered, the moment people feel a sense of agency, things start to change. And Poulan's story is a perfect example of that. She was not supposed to do that. She was not. Nobody in her village did that. I don't know whether you've been to India or not, but if you are an Indian girl who gets raped at that early age, most probably you will live a life of quiet desperation. Or maybe, you just throw yourself into a well. And this is an illiterate girl. There is no internet. She has no outside source of education and inspiration. For God's sake, how could she happen? It's still a mystery to me. Okay. But she did happen. And today we have hundreds and hundreds of women's rights organizations all across India who are doing great work defending women's rights in India because of that. They say in its purest form, democracy is the power of one. Be the one.
And
she was. Okay, so that's the whole.
Yeah, and Anne O'Connell has asked, obviously there's the storytelling, but is the filmmaker who tells many of the stories, like an Irish Shanna Key, which is the Irish word for a storyteller. Although the story does not belong to them originally, they have the skills to bring other people's stories to many people. And is the filmmaker art one of professional listening, somewhat like a therapist, facilitating people to tell their stories so they may bring it to others?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, right now. Yes, right on target. You have to be a therapist. You have to listen, because listen, I mean, I go to places, I talk to people who have been sexually violated. I talk to people who have spent years in prison and they've been innocent, right? I talk to people with trauma, lots of traumatic experiences in their past. I got to be absolutely gentle and trustworthy. These people don't trust others, particularly, outsiders. So it's not like, you just can go there and, with your cameras and with your gear and sit down and talk to them and say, okay, tell me your story, putting light, on their faces. That doesn't work. You have to establish a relationship. 50% of it is success. So yes, you have to be a therapist. I have to be a psychologist. And at the same time, and I'm not, you have to be authentic. I mean, because people feel these things. It's not something you can fake. So you cannot be a fake therapist. You have to be you should really care about that. Yeah.
To that point, I mean, Maggie, who sought to speak by audio, has just messaged in. Thank you, Maggie, for doing that. So Maggie is an actor and filmmaker based in the west of Ireland, and has just completed a play where she played a character very similar to Fulham, but in rural Ireland in the 80s. And what was surprising in the Q&A afterwards, many agreed that this is still happening, and she's very much inspired about making a film about the Irish care system, and obviously, but having known families who are affected, I think it's very important. So again, back to the theme tonight, when you have a story that resonates deeply with you and it's profound, being able to transfer that to screen and to others, whether it's screen or on stage, and whether it's audio form. It's excellent that people have, as you said, the courage and the bravery to go and do so. Well done, Maggie. Thank you for that.
Yes, and Maggie, this is great. By the way, the story of Poulan actually happened in the 80s, which is interesting. Okay, 70s and 80s. That's, when her story was happening in India. But yeah, look, I mean, these things are, last year, 270,000 women were raped in America and Canada, and this is the official statistics, right? The real number is perhaps 10 times higher, because a lot of women do not report. It's a huge problem. And to be honest with you, it's a very, I don't believe in a black and white world. I think it is very bad for men as well. And I'm not talking about men who do these things. I'm talking about us. All right. It affects our psyche. I mean, everybody has a sister, a mother, a lover, a wife. Okay. Or at least a mother and a sister. So I think it affects the way we move in society to a great extent. So it's not just a female problem. It's actually pretty much a male problem as well. I look at it that way. And I think, one of the reasons I'm making these films about sexual violence, about trauma, about, gender equality, about, human rights, is because I'm trying to get in touch. You have to. We have, every man has a female side and every woman has a male side. You've got to reconcile the two. And, within this social structure, it's not easy. All right. So in a sense, we do all these creative things to become a more organic, holistic person. It's really, for me, a personal journey at the end of the day. But yeah, it's great that you guys are doing this. And as I said, if you feel compassionate about anything, I mean, I don't know much about the Irish care system, but I'm sure that there are many great, inspiring stories in that context that you can access and you can, project onto the screen and impact people and probably help change the Irish care system if you think it's such a mess.
And
you have the power to do that.
And for Maggie, we're all about, all of our talks are always about connect. And so if Maggie, you'd like to connect with Martin afterwards, and we always ask for his permission to share our evening on our YouTube social. But of course, we'll we actually have a link to your website already on our events page, and so you can contact Martin directly there, Maggie, to if you want to have further discussions about your own projects. So thank you for that. Final comments on Joe. Very struck by our guest point about the capabilities of a smartphone to make a movie. Has he any suggestions on the distribution of marketing of such a film?
In terms of marketing it, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The pace of film funding, particularly documentary film funding and film distribution, is changing rapidly. Like nothing is comparable to what we had even 15 years ago, 10 years ago. 20 years ago, if you wanted to make a documentary film, you had to go to a network or a foundation, okay, mainly a network, a television network, and so present your project, and those networks being mainstream and being connected to the system, those that had money to finance your project, would inevitably water your project down. Okay, so you couldn't really talk about any controversial issues in your films because you were dealing with a network. Today, it has changed. So today we have other platforms. For example, today we have the rise of socially conscious philanthropists. These are people who do philanthropy, right? And they have money to spend. And they may not care about certain social issues, social justice issues, but they care about others. For example, many of them care about environmental justice. Many of them care about racial justice, right? They may not care so much about poverty and income inequality, but they care about sexual violence against women. So that is one category of people that are on the rise. We did not have them before, okay, in this way, in this systematic way. Now we do. I got something like $350,000 from a philanthropist just a few years ago for one of my films, and this was her tax money. Okay, so one. Second, we have socially conscious entrepreneurs, Silicon Valley types. Okay, these guys were on the street.
I guess, where there's a will, there's a way, as we say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Find the success.
You find the money, and to be honest with you, you don't need a lot of money to make your film. Okay, I mean, you know what, you have to have, if you're starting, basically all you need is you got to become a one person in a studio. So you've got to learn how to utilize your cell phone, get a camera or a small camera, get an editing software, okay, get some sound filtering device, okay, and then the most important,
particularly for Irish skin, Martin, because we don't have the same beautiful tone of skin as yourself, so we need to.
Yeah, you're not kind to yourself.
Just unfortunately, we don't take the sun so easily. But anyway, that's a personal thing.
Everybody's welcome to come here next year. When I finish Pula, to have a wrap party with me.
Lots of suntan lotion.
So become a one person studio. The most important part of it, have a mentor. That's the most important part of it, because have somebody who is experienced, who believes in the project or believes in you, okay, as a supervising force, all right? And you don't have to listen to her or to him, all right? But have that person beside you. Because as I said, the most important thing in making a good film is to avoid the pitfalls, or not to go. Making a film is like walking in a jungle, dark jungle. So you need a guide to tell you, don't go there. There are crocodiles. Don't go there. There are boas. Don't go there. There are lions. There's a swamp there. All right. Once you have that, you have a clear path. It becomes a question of walking. It becomes a question of your stamina. It becomes a question of your will. That's it. All right. No tiger is going to eat you up. So have a guide to tell you about the pitfalls. And once you have that, I would say you're 75% set, given that you have your passion and your commitment. Yeah.
Can I ask?
Oh, sorry. Beg your pardon.
Yeah. So
ahead.
where did you get your mentor from? And where did you get Martin from? It's an Irish name.
It is actually, that's right.
Yeah.
Martin comes from my dad.
Okay.
So he called me Martin, and because he loved Martin Luther King.
Yeah, cool.
And then it's funny because a long time after that, I saw a film about Ireland, A Prayer for the Dying. Anybody has seen it?
Yes, I have.
And the name of the main character was Martin as well. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that kind of confirmed my dad's choice for me. But that's where what was your first question?
I was going to ask you, have you heard of this festival? It's on very soon. It's very special and very niche and small in Ireland, called the Boris Festival. I know what's called Ideas and Thinking.
No, I'll make a note of that. Boris, like B-A-R or B-A-R?
No, B-O-R-R-I-S, Boris.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. Boris. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's on next month.
Okay.
And they would be so lucky to have you.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish I could come to Ireland next month, but it has to wait. But I'm sure the festival will run again. So yeah,
it will. But it's annually, and it's a very niche, small time. Like the Hayes Festival in England.
Yes.
Was that
okay?
Minusculed by 15,000 million. It's like it's tiny, but the most interesting people in the world you'll ever meet.
Hey, I mean, some of the best festivals I've gone to have taking place in a small village in Slovakia, or, you know,
They're the
in
best.
or Vienna, exactly, because that's where, you know, the real action happens. People are not pretentious. The media attention is minimal. You know, people can talk to each other, right? Really kind of converse with each other in regard to the movies they see. So no, I mean, size doesn't matter. Let me put it this way.
It sure doesn't. Look at that one for 2024. Okay, go on, mind yourself. Back in feckin' Mexico, you lucky thing. Not the cold in Ireland. Go on. Good luck. Thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're a little bit over time, but I mean, I think Anne, actually, Martin has pretty much answered those around the pitfalls, and or maybe where, Martin, you got your first mentor yourself.
Really? Who's that?
Well, who was your first mentor?
Oh, oh, yeah, sorry, that was the first question. I thought you said my first mentor, to be honest with you, it was an architect who knew the history of cinema inside out. He had not made a film, but he knew so much about the stories, the behind the scenes stories, that talking to him was a great help. But I did not really have a mentor in the first, I would say, 5 years of my career, and that's why I made a lot of mistakes. I've made a tremendous amount of mistakes. I have virtually ruined some of my films because I did not have a mentor. My first 3 films, great premises, never got anywhere because I made every possible mistake I could make, right? And
well,
then
I guess, like, I mean, we all say it and know it. The best way to learn is from
that's one of the,
as a child, and learning from your mistakes.
That's right, your mistakes. But I mean, if you want to make a mistake, you know, if you want to learn by doing, do a small thing, do a short film, okay, or do an experimental film, or do something that matters but doesn't matter. But if you want to embark on a journey of making a 50-minute or 90-minute film, don't make that an experiment. I made that mistake. It's not worth it, because I've seen a lot of people losing heart after, you know, the film. They see that the film, something that they put 2 years of their time, energy, sweat, blood into, okay, doesn't work. And never just paying attention.
They fail to prepare to fail.
Yeah, it's full of, you know, preventable mistakes. So no, I mean, you know, do your 5-minute experiment or 3-minute experiment or 10-minute experiment, but do not embark on a real film journey. You have to film is not a spontaneous process. Film is a carefully planned process.
And that's the crazy sense of it, is that when you look at it, but it's all the work, all the planning, all the prep to really fine tune, and it's clear you have done that in spades. Right. So, look, we're kind of a little bit over, which, you know, thank you to you. We always enjoy, I certainly enjoy, we run over a little bit. It means we've had a good conversation. I feel we could sit here, well, in our time all evening, but we know you're a little bit behind, and as I already had my pre-day swim, so you might go for your lunch or afternoon swim and wherever you are.
Yes, actually, I'm going for a swim in a couple hours, but yeah.
Well, hopefully you enjoy that. So before I wrap up, I just want to make sure I've got everybody's comments in. I've Aileen, fabulous talk, thank you. And fabulous talk, thank you so much, so interesting. And I'm hoping everybody else feels the same. Patrick Lamb, what a fab guest to have, thank you. Wow, the plaudits are really coming in here, thick and fast. And Martin, so again, thank you so much from Maggie. So while we, you know, just finish up in general, as always, we like to give the final word to our guest. And so Martin, your final word, please.
Thank you. No, it was, you know, fantastic to be here, and I really appreciate you guys, sharing your time with me. I believe that we can make the world a better place, and I think that filmmaking and documentary genre is really a powerful platform to do that. And so I hope more people get interested in it, because as I said, I don't really think that the platform has been utilized. I think it's still 95% of documentary films made do not produce an impact, a lasting impact on anything. And there is a reason for that. I mean, there's no time to get into that, but I really hope that more and more people get interested in the realm, in the genre, and then start practicing. And I would be very happy to help. I believe this is one of my core beliefs, that we're on this planet to serve, and you really become yourself through serving. I believe in that. So I'd be happy to help however I can, but just believe in yourself. Okay, believe in your story. Don't let the narrative that you are a small fish in an ocean, that you don't matter, sink in. Never. Okay, sometimes we have to unlearn things that we have learned. So have this start. It's not easy. Okay, the first step is probably the most difficult, but take that first baby step, and then experience the miracle of I call it the miracle of possibility out there. The world is a very open book, let me put it this way. And I think we can do a lot. I'm talking about this very small group here tonight. We can do a lot to really impact reality on the ground. So let's go for it.
Yeah, and look, I think, us as Humanism Ireland and as a group, and we have members, and we don't have members, but they like what we do. And we look at campaigning and censorship and ways to, as you said, get around walls and barriers, because as humanists, we face many different tribes. Uriel mentioned the Hasidic Jews, and there's so many different communities. But as a humanist, entity and community, our biggest passion is to, connect and to speak in a positive way. And all of the talks, and I know you looked at some of our previous speakers, and I hope you got that sense that everybody wants to project their story, and for us to accept that, and I think acceptance in life is, as you've clearly shown, is such an important trait.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So thank you very much, Michael. It was a pleasure to be with you guys, everybody here, and I really appreciate the invite and the trust you put in me for this past.
Well, I think also we want to thank Sylvia, because I know Sylvia was very instrumental in inviting you, so very kind, and to Erin and to all of our team at the Humanist Group. And if people want to know more about humanism, I said we have our website, and as always, Martin, we will ask your permission to share the evening on our YouTube channel, and so we'll do that afterwards, as always, in a polite way. But thank you so much for your time, and best of luck with your new project. Again, I've seen more brilliant words from Anne. Anne O'Connell is the treasurer for Humanists UK, and made the effect to Humanism Ireland more often for these great events. Well, there's a nice comment. Thank you very much, Anne, and again from happy days from Joe. So I think finally from my side, you are always welcome, whether it's Boris in the festival, which I know myself you would enjoy, or just coming to Dublin or to Ireland to meet us for a pint, as we like to say. It's that simple. And it's nothing too complicated. We'd love to get you for a pint or coffee or beer.
They didn't get pissed, right?
Exactly. Now you're talking. Yeah.
Hey, that's absolutely. I'm actually right now, Ireland is on my list as well. So hopefully this year or next year.
Yeah, we'll make sure you. As I said, if anybody directly wants to contact, Hossein Martin, the website will be there, and we'll also put it in our little summary And so with that, I shall bid everybody adieu, good evening, and thank you so much for attending. And as always, we're appreciative, and have a wonderful rest of Wednesday and weekend ahead. Thank you.